Temple, obviously, some of the people listening to this today will have older children that have autism that may be going into the workforce. Can you tell me some of the jobs that somebody with Asperger's syndrome or high functioning autism may be good at, and some they may be very, very bad at?
You must avoid multitasking. These kids absolutely cannot multitask. Some of the entry-level jobs, like cashier in a busy restaurant, I would be quiet. If the person is a visual thinker, let's use jobs that use visual thinking. Photography, graphic design, cartooning, industrial design. These are all visual thinking jobs. The music and math guys, they're going to be good at computer programming, good at engineering, and the word mind. I've been interviewed by a lot of journalists that I'm sure are Asperger, and they're the word mind. They're also really good at a lot of library and archiving type jobs. Another thing I want to emphasize is we've got to pay attention to the sensory issues. A lot of people on the spectrum, both high and low functioning, cannot tolerate the flicker of fluorescent lights. It makes them feel like they're in a discotheque. Certain loud noises bother them. And there needs to be a lot more research done on the sensory problems because they can be extremely debilitating. Even now, I cannot tolerate itchy, scratchy things against my skin.
Okay. Temple, I understand that some of the people that come up to you at the end of conferences are always ask you questions about their own child. If many of the listeners out here today, I think, are going to be family members, what recommendations would you give to family members as to how to help the young person or the young man that has autism or Asperger's syndrome?
First of all, you need to recognize sensory issues. And if you have a problem with behavior, you've got to ask yourself, is it sensory? There are some children and adults that absolutely cannot go to big supermarkets. Too many fluorescent lights, too many smells. They're just overwhelmed sensory. So they have a temper tantrum every time they go in there. That's sensory. And you've got to differentiate between that and bad behavior. You know, and I can tell you, I was always pushing the limits. I knew which house in the neighborhood I could be naughty. And in the 50s, I was taught manners. I was taught to say please and thank you. I was taught not to be rude. These things need to be taught one specific thing at a time. I could go into a store and shop because I was taught not to pull things off the shelves. Just has to be taught, sort of like acting in a play. And my 50s upbringing also has really helped me.
Okay. Temple, we understand that you'll be speaking on July 17th in beautiful Dixon, Illinois, which happens to be the home of Ronald Reagan. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other people speaking with you there?
Well, Tony Atwood's going to be there, and he has a very good book on Asperger's. It's kind of a short book, and I like his short book. We've got to work on developing the area of strength because I work in a technical field, and some people say that only 20% of Asperger's get employed. That's not a complete sample. Because if you work in a technical field like computer programming or engineering, there's Asperger's 40 years up and up all over the workplace because they were taught social skills when they were very young. You know, you love the Silicon Valley, and those Silicon Valley parents, they have printed those kids into computer programming. Started around 8 or 10 to start teaching programming. You know, somebody's got to work with them. This mentors, again, I cannot emphasize enough, especially when you get on the high end of the spectrum, the importance of mentors, like my science teacher. I was goofing around in school, I was interested in studying. I didn't have a goal. And when I had a goal of becoming a scientist. You know, one parent today said, well, my kid's really interested in endangered species. Well, okay, let's get him involved in environmental things. Or another kid loves elephants. I said, read about elephants. Do math with elephants. Learn about the behavior of elephants. Learn about how they talk with low-frequency sound through the ground. Use elephants, you know, that to motivate things that can turn into hobbies and careers. And we've got to do a lot more thinking about what are they going to do when they grow up. I see smart Asperger kids graduating from college, no job skills. We need to start teaching those skills. Things like being on time, things like turn taking, things like being polite.
Okay. Temple, I understand that this conference on July 17th and 18th in Dixon, that any of our listeners from anywhere in the world can actually see and hear you. How is that?
Well, I think that's just absolutely wonderful, and one of the things that really makes me happy is when I have a parent or I have somebody on the spectrum come up to me and saying, you know, something they read in my book, Thinking of Pictures, one of my or any of my books, really helped them understand their child. that makes me really happy, because I want people on the spectrum to end up having a good life.
Yeah. Now, but this conference you're doing, how will people around the world be able to be seeing you and to be hearing you?
Well, it's my understanding you're going to be broadcasting it over the internet.
I got you. So if they want to see you and hear you over the internet on July 17th and Tony Atwood on the 18th, how would they get more information?
Well, they could go to the Future Horizons webpage at fhautism.com. That's one place to get some more information. I've got a number of stuff on the webpage, autism.org. You know, they can get some further information there.
Okay.
You know, if they're in the U.S., they might want to contact the Autism Society of America. I just can't emphasize enough, you know, if you're a parent with a young child, you've got to start doing early intervention. Let's say you're somewhere in the world where there's no services. So then maybe get some grandmothers, get some students, anybody to work with this little kid. Because the worst thing you could do with an autistic 3-year-old is let him sit in front of the TV all day rocking. Doing nothing's the worst thing you can do. Gotcha.
Okay, Temple, thank you very much. It's really great talking to you. We'll look forward to be hearing from you on July 17th.
Okay, great.
Thank you, kiddo. Bye-bye. The information you have just heard is general in nature and is not to be used as a diagnosis on any child or adult. For information or for an accurate diagnosis, contact professionals in your area. We wish you well.